Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Wellness of Madness podcast. I am your host, Lore, and this is officially the season 2 finale of the Wellness of Madness podcast. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate all the messages and contact that I get through Instagram and through Facebook and through the website. It's been great. Thank you guys so much. Today is a very, very special episode for me, and the reason I wanted to do it as a finale. I know it took us a while, and this episode should have been already about 3 weeks ago, but things happen. Sometimes we need a little wellness re-up, and that's exactly what happened. But I am very excited about this episode because I have a very special guest, the most special guest probably, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. It is my mom on today's show. I also find it very interesting to have my mom because I don't find a lot of content out there on mental health and mental health advocacy that has a parent's perspective. And I think we need to start from a parent's perspective as well, because if we want to help any children out there dealing with certain mental health issues, it's important to educate the parents as well. So without further ado, I'm going to bring her on and we're going to get started and get going with the show. It is the season finale. So next time we will see you on season 3 in the fall. I can't wait. Let's get this party started, everybody. Hello, Ama.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So we are in the same household, but she's outside. That's why it looks so lovely out there. That's how we're going to start the episode. The fact that I can't live away from my mom. I tried. I lived in an apartment for about 3 years, I think. And then I ended up living again with my mom. And there's no shame in that. You can live with your parents, especially if you like them. Let's start by addressing who you are, how old you are, and where you come from. So how old are you, Emma?
Okay, I am 55 years old, and I am from Veracruz, Mexico, which is the southeast of the Mexican Republic. Beautiful place. And I came to United States in 1993 when you were 4 years old.
Nice. So you had me at 23 years old.
Yes, I was 23 when I had you.
Okay. And it is important to say that you are a single parent. You're a single mom.
Yes.
And have you been a single mom the whole time since?
Whole time since you are 2 weeks old.
Oh my.
Yes, all your life.
All my life. And is there any mental health issues that you know of on your side, on your mom's side, on your parents' side, on your father's side? Anything that you knew?
No. To be honest, no. And before, obviously, like you don't know too much or anything about mental health or mental issues. But as far as I know, there is no issues in my, no problems in my side.
So let's talk about that, because you said there wasn't a lot of information. Growing up in Mexico and then transitioning, growing up in United States, on either end, was there any mental health information or a mental health education or anything that you knew about mental health?
No, to be honest, not at all. Because when I grew up, if you see a kid probably like crying or yelling or running around, you will say that it's not a well-behaved kid. You never says like, oh, he's a hyperactive kid or anything like that. Oh, no. The mom is not educating this kid, It's nothing mental related.
What about cases of depression? Because I think coming from a Mexican household, for us, maybe not just Mexican household, maybe everyone, we were very told like, oh, maybe you're just being lazy, but maybe that person was depressed. Did you ever meet anyone, or did you ever come across someone that maybe you thought had depression?
No. I don't know if it's our culture or it's probably because like you don't have time to do that. You don't have time to be depressed. Like in my case, I was a single mom when I was 23, and probably I was going through depression during my divorce or so, but I didn't have time to enjoy that suffering, or to even think about it. You just have to keep going. You just have to find what the hell are you going to do next? Find a job or move to another country, whatever you need to do. But you don't have time to think about any depression or anything else.
I think that's difficult because, and on one side, you want to say, well, it's better because then you're fine. And on the other side, you're like, man, maybe I should have dealt with some traumas or some problems, but it's very hard on my end because if you guys don't know my mom, it's really, she's been through a lot, but it's really difficult to be like, oh, it's really had an impact on her because she's positive. Like I live with her. She's not hiding it. You know what I mean? I've always seen such a positive part about my mom. So it is difficult. But I must say that in the earlier years of our relationship, she definitely had a little bit more of a, would you say a little bit more maybe
Neurotic.
anger or neurotic? Yeah, yeah. Why would you say that was? Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think that being positive, I'm just gonna go back a little bit. Being
Mm-hmm.
positive is uh, uh, because you have the blessing to have friends, and probably having friends you share. I have one wonderful friend that we have been friends since we are 7 years old, Angeles, and she has been an angel for me. Every time when I feel something, even like the issues through that I was having through my divorce, she was always listening to me. Probably that was kind of like my therapy without even thinking that it was like a therapy. Coming here to United States, it was the depression of not having money because we didn't have any child support, probably just for a couple of years, and that's it. And so you have to be in a country where it's not even your language. So first of all, you have to live in a country that is not yours, that is not your language, and as a woman, divorce, it's even harder. So, and on top of that, you have the pressure of like having, I mean, I love my mom, but my mom was kind of like possessive. So I have to deal with, in one side, she was taking care of you, and it was a blessing for me because that way I can keep working. But it got to the point that for me it was hard to leave home for like 10, 12, 11 hours, God knows what, because I was working without seeing you, and coming home and have that pressure like your mom need this or you need that. Probably that's why that happened.
Yeah, and see, and this is interesting things that you bring up, because before we talk about a mom's perspective on my mental health, I want to talk about your mental health and the fact that your mom's relationship was always um, a little bit possessive, a little like our my grandmother grew up in a whole different world that was very difficult, and that also added to the way she raised us, and specifically you as pretty much the strongest woman of the
Hmm.
household. Aside from her, there was a lot
Yeah.
of stress placed on you. You also mentioned about being a woman and working, and I want to talk about that because I grew up seeing my mom sometimes come home crying because of what we now know is sexual harassment and bullying and a lot of things that were completely unacceptable, but also completely overseen, especially if you were an immigrant or a Latina or anything
Yeah.
else. So let's talk a little bit about your work environment and how was that, now that you know that a lot of those things were, you knew they were wrong, but now you're like,
Yeah.
hey, that was completely
Yeah.
unacceptable.
Yeah, I know now, but before, again, I never heard of words of harassment or like depression or like nothing. I think I live in a very naive place or in my very naive world, and probably that is why. I my first job was in Chapman University, which is a private school with a food. I've been in food services since 1997, so I started as a cashier, and eventually, like in a very short time, like 3 months or so, I became a supervisor. So for some people, men who were at that time working like several years with the company and never had the opportunity, I had to deal with them because they didn't want to help me, and they make it obvious, in a way that says like, whoa, you're a supervisor, you should know how to do it, or like hide stuff from me, or being like totally disrespectful, to the point that some people invite you to, oh yeah, let's go out, and if you say no, then later on they're gonna like run a rumor that I was a lesbian, and just because I didn't want to go out with them, But at that point, and I didn't want to date anyone, I just want to concentrate on you. I want to get focused on you. I want to get like a good career, But it was hard. It was hard, especially for people that you don't want to date. And because you, as a woman, you have to like gain the respect to everyone, and sometimes you have to do what you have to do, being the same as like asshole as they are. That's the same way that you have to be in order to survive in a world of like men, because kitchen most of the time are full of men, you know.
But somehow they tell you go back to the kitchen. Like
Oh
that.
yeah,
Where
of
do they
course.
want? Do you want us in the kitchen or out of the kitchen?
Yeah,
um No, I remember hearing a lot of those stories, and now thinking about it, you're like, that is insane. You don't want to date someone and you create rumors. I remember one time you mentioned that because you've always been, I always said that my mom's been the man, like you have to show up and be the man sometimes. You
yeah.
have to, unfortunately, it shouldn't be like that. And now things are hopefully changing. But I remember one time you said that you just straight up told the guy, like, you want to go outside? Like, let's go. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was, I remember clearly, his name was Daniel, and he was the oldest person in the kitchen. So he was working with the company probably like more than 10 years or so, and I was the new person, like barely 3 months, and she was already becoming a supervisor. So every time when he had a chance, he was just like being like totally disrespectful. And you know what? I grew up with men. I grew up with three brothers. So I can be a tomboy, and I love to be a tomboy too. So I remember that day when I asked him, I don't to how to use a machine, and he was like totally disrespectful. And he clearly told me, "I wish you could be a man. That way I can like take you outside and beat the shit out of you." And I just always use my keys in my pants. So I was having a set of keys, so I just removed the key from my pants and I just slammed it on the counter, metallic counter. Imagine the noise. And I just told him, "Hey, you know what? I don't need to be a man to beat the shit out of you. You want to take it outside? Let's get the fuck out outside. Okay, let's do it. But in my mind, in my inside, I was shaking. I almost cried, but I didn't want to cry in front of him. So since that day, the guy loved me, and he totally respect me after that. But it's sad that you have to
why do
get to
you
that
have to do that? Why
yes,
do you have to get to that point? And that's what's
yes,
unnecessary, and we know that. But
yeah,
I think it had an impact growing up hearing stories like that, because it gave me confidence. It gave me confidence to be like, no, I can show up in any room and be like, hey, you know what I mean? I'm confident in myself because my mom was confident in her. And that's what I want to mention, that a lot of people have told me like, oh, you just have a lot of self-esteem and a lot of confidence. And it's really because I grew up with parents, my mom, my grandmother, my aunts, my uncles, who were not really concerned about what they looked like or felt. No, they were strong people that did it, that got out there, and happy people, because we had a very, very happy life. A very happy, I forgot the word,
childhood,
childhood. Ha, thank you. A very happy childhood. So I love hearing stories like that, but it is unnecessary. It's unfortunate. It shouldn't happen to
yeah,
anybody, and it should
no.
have stopped a very, very long time ago. So with that said, you've been through a lot as an immigrant, as a woman, as a single parent, and somehow, like you said, maybe through friends and social aspects, you've been able to get through a lot of these issues. So now you have a kid. Let's start getting into, as a mom brain, mom perspective. Was there any point that you started noticing that your kid was different, or that your kid might have something?
Well, I know that you were different when you were like 2 years old, when you started going to school. 2 years old. And you already knew the colors in English. So I know that you were smarter than usual. The kind of questions that you asked me when you were 3 and 4. Why the sky is blue and not purple or green, but and you couldn't get like satisfied with that simple like answer. No. It has to be a deep answer. But the real time when you were around 7, between 7 and 8, that I noticed that you have those like tics, I'm making some noises like or like what being like watching TV and just kind of like jump or so. I At that time I didn't think about anything as a problem. What I thought it was a mania. Like I even like asked my brother, which is a doctor, and he said like, oh, those are manias. And you got that into your head, but you again you don't have the initiative or like to get more information. It's totally ignorance, because you get to like, oh, okay, those are tics and that's it. And because like at the end of my divorce, I noticed those tics or manias or something with your father, which later on
Mm.
we will know that he was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome. But he didn't even know. He got
Yeah.
diagnosed probably when he was like on his 30s. And one
Wow.
more time, ignorance.
And also I think that you guys didn't have the facility of going on the internet, because the internet wasn't as easy as it is now. We didn't even know what the internet was going to be. You couldn't find the answers, that you could just Google things now. So in all fairness, it was more difficult to figure out. So you start noticing those tics, motor tics, visual tics. Do you start noticing anything else as time progresses aside from tics?
Well, one thing that I noticed, and to be honest, I didn't think it was a problem, that you said that you have always a friend, your imaginary friend, Iris.
Yeah.
I remember, you always talk about Iris, blah, blah, blah. But again, I didn't think that it was something wrong. I was just totally
Yes.
blind. I wish I can go back in time, and at that point, now with the information that I have, take you to the doctor.
Of course. And in all fair, what I wanted to say right now, that she mentioned an imaginary friend, a lot of kids have imaginary friends, and that is completely normal. The only thing that was happening to me is that I had school wasn't going as great as it could have. So I kind of had a lack of friends, or not even a lack of friends, but a lack of connection with people. So I had these imaginary friends. However, it started creating kind of like another reality, and it was starting to become difficult realizing which one was and which one wasn't. So we could tell right off the bat that it wasn't the most normal, relationship. And that's why she mentions the imaginary friend. So years go by, I'm undiagnosed. We still don't know exactly what's going on. Do the tics change over time? Do you notice other things coming as I become a teenager? Because again, a teenager is a really hard time in everyone's life, especially if you're dealing with mental health issues, and especially as a parent. And I cannot even imagine as a single parent. So what were some of the concerns that started happening as you transitioned from like 12 into 13 years old?
Yeah. Well, the first one was when you were still in elementary, and having the issues with the teachers. Like you were collecting like what she at that time the teacher called trash. And I remember when she called me, and you have like a bag full of huge trash bag full of like papers, like any kind of like trash, but you keep saying that it was a treasure, and at that point I got like that idea that I needed to be more present, because that wasn't normal. And you were having issues with the professors. You probably at that time, that was the first time that I see that you didn't have like too many friends, as a normal kid. I will say they play with everyone. You were more like just with one or two or the same friends. When you transferred to a junior high, is when I started noticing more, like kind of like being more like I saw you like you were upset, with what I didn't know. But you have that attitude that you didn't have before. And I remember when one time I tried to hug you, and you just like says like, oh, ouch, and I asked you what happened, and you told me that, oh, I fall, or this happened. I was playing basketball. It was always like an excuse for something that I knew at that point that it wasn't right, you know. But it was in that time that to started noticing that you didn't have like too many friends, or like something was going on.
And the two aspects that she's referring to, the first one was I started hoarding things into my desk, and it definitely was an issue because I had a desk full of stuff, and I liked school as far as learning and everything, but I didn't do my homework. I didn't care about some teacher figuring out how smart or not I was. I don't know why, but I started hoarding a lot of things that to me were now that I know, were very clear signs. If I saw a lid in the dirt, I'd pick it up because I felt like it was alone and it didn't have a friend. So I started building connections with objects and feeling bad and empathetic for things that maybe didn't have feelings, because I was probably mirroring it back to me because I wanted someone to be like, hey, you know what I mean? I'll be your friend. So I started hoarding all these things, and it wasn't trash to me, because the way the teacher was reacting to it to me was like, well, then that's how you treat people too. If people aren't valuable, then they're trash. And that's when things got weird in my head. The second thing that she's talking about is I started getting bullied when I entered junior high. And that I've talked about it before, about also being Latino and not fitting in as a Mexican with different people. And then I ended up hanging out with the wrong people, which were kind of the cholos and gangsters and stuff. In junior high, I started getting bullied. I never told my parents, so I'd come back with bruises and stuff around my body, and I didn't want them to find out. So once she finally found out, this is when it kind of changed the course of everything. Why don't you tell us an experience, because you actually went to school to try to be like, hey, my child is getting bullied, and what happened?
Yeah. Well, at the beginning, when I realized that what was going on, and I went to talk to the principal, I was just like petrified by fear and by, I don't know if I was disappointed, I was scared, but I was upset because the principal basically says that, oh, if they agree to do it, so that's nothing that I can do. And I was thinking, like, how the hell my daughter is gonna agree to be like beat up every time when she comes to school, you know? And I remember, I know you remember that the police got involved, and police didn't do anything. And I
Yep.
remember saying for the first time in my life that to the principal, if my daughter were American, that will be a totally different story, you know? And I just grabbed you and I left the school. And since that day, when I was working, I was just like scared. I was just waiting for a moment for people or to call me that you were in the hospital. So I was just like, no, I was out of my mind. I would just have to, at the same time, to be working, but at the same time, I wanted to be with you. I wanted to protect you because it was getting rougher and rougher every single day.
Yeah, indeed, it's unfortunate sometimes when you see the difference or the racism play, but it was very evident because it was true. The way kids were treated was different, and unfortunately, I'd say there was a level of social injustice as well there. And you actually got to witness it. So I would get beat up pretty much on a daily basis. Some days it wouldn't be too bad. Some days it'd be like a smack or a punch. Some other days I've got hit with a bat. Sometimes they'd throw you in that little circle and they'd push you around. And I remember one of the kids had a knife that day, and I thought I was gonna die, which was really scary. I didn't, which was good. But still, to even imagine that these kids are 13,
Yeah.
they're kids, and it's not their fault either. They're coming from household of real gangs and gangsters and people that get in trouble, which again is probably not even their fault because of the way they're raised and their opportunities and environment. So you actually got to witness it one day when you picked me up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, that day I decided to get a little bit early off from work, so just to pick you up because I was anxious. So I think I got that feeling that something was going on. So I remember to be driving like very slow, trying to like see you. And at that time, you were with your friend. You would always walk together. So I was trying to see either one of you, you know. So when I see a big group of kids. I mean, they were like obviously like someone was were in the middle of that huge, like massive, like circle of people. My heart started beating like you have no idea. So I just passed the stop and I parked like right, almost getting to the sidewalk, just to purposely to like get rid of like scare the kids, you know. When they started to run like everywhere and I saw you in the middle, I just opened the door. I remember you two like basically ran inside my car, and I drove home. And that was the day when I just was thinking like, no, we need to leave.
So the bullying, again, was unfortunate, and I don't want to say that I had no, no one deserves that, though. No one deserves to get bullied. No one deserves to get beat up at all, and no one deserves to have to be a part of a group. And that was my problem. I didn't want to fit in a part of a group. And even adults, I'm not going to say children, adults still commit this. If you don't belong here, then you have to belong here, but you have to belong somewhere, because if you're too different, you can't like everything. Even in I've seen in music scenes, if you like metal, then you have to dress this way. You can't like metal and then have a Britney Spears shirt on, because that doesn't make sense. And it's like, it's too much. So I could see the social circles form, and I didn't want to be a part of it. So when I was involved with these Latino kids, these Mexican kids, the only reason was because I felt more accepted. They almost made you feel like a family, like you were fully accepted with your culture and your language and everything else. However, when I started seeing, one act like a jerk towards the other, I couldn't keep my mouth shut, which is my biggest problem in the world. So I started, I guess, disrupting their gang or whatever. And then I started getting beat up. So of course I did open my mouth, however, unacceptable. So what happens next is you start to try to find different alternatives, different schools. Charter school is something that is a possibility, but it's too expensive. And that's just the truth. A private school was too expensive. We didn't know anything else. And as a Latino in America, you don't have a lot of options. And the decision was to go back home. Right.
Yeah.
So
well, after I had good friends. I remember Professor Ortiz from Chapman, that he was such a wonderful person. And he even and his wife tried to like get me some information from private school. But to be honest, at that point, the entire like month for the school, it was my paycheck for probably the month. So I was debating like at that point I was trying to find some help from your father, which I didn't have. And I was debating like, if I put my daughter in private school, how am I going to pay the bills? And I wanted to be more involved with you. I didn't want to make the same mistake of being working 12 hours and then seeing you only 2 or 3. I wanted to be more present. So
and that's a
that's
hard
why.
decision, because you either make the money, so you go to work all day, you don't see your kid, but she's in a good school, or she's getting bullied at another school, and there's no right answer. It's
Yeah. What I was thinking for me is that I needed to be more present as a father, as a mom, as a parent, because I was both. So I had to be like firm as a father but sweet as a mom, and try to combine those two. It was hard, but I didn't want to be a provider, which I was become. I thought that I was more a provider than a parent. So because I was bringing the money home, but I wasn't spending time with you. I mean, I'm blessed that again, my mom was taking care of you, my brother, my sister were living in the house, but it's not the same. They are
absolutely.
not the parents. I was the parent. So
Absolutely.
I
So I think,
decided to be more present.
and I think that the next decision that was taken was one of the best decisions ever taken for me in my life, even though it has its ups and downs. However, it really was one of the best, because before this, it really was more of I loved my mom and I saw my mom, but I almost saw my mom as my grandma, because I saw my grandma every single day at all times of the day. And
Yeah.
my mom almost became like my sister almost, because we had fun, which was great, but I didn't see her as often. So the next decision she made was, you know what? Let's get out of here. Let's go back home, which again, I think was one of the best decisions ever made. I got to go back to my culture. Of course, it has its ups and downs, but we left, right? So we
Yes.
went back to Orizaba. And I want to mention to everybody that at that time, I was very aggressive. I was very angry. I was very out of my zone. I had mirrored other people's identity so far that if you know me, you know that I don't like the color pink. But when I left to Mexico, I was wearing a velvet tracksuit with baby fat shoes and cornrows in my hair. So, and hoops and hoops. So I was definitely having some identity crisis there. And and we went on home. So what at that time, with a parent's perspective, how did you view me? It wasn't your kid, right? It was a different person.
You were very upset, and that's what hurt me the most,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew that it wasn't you, but I knew that you have the right to be upset. So it's a mixed emotion, like huge ball, but the first feeling that I have, it was that it was my fault that you were upset. But you were right to be upset. I will be upset too, because I was in a school that I was like being like beat up every day. Teachers, which I don't understand how teachers cannot see how the kids are like going through all those issues. They are not involved. I'm sorry, but they're not teachers. They're just people who go and cover their shift, do the hours, and that's it. They don't get involved with kids. So I was trying to show you a different kind of world, the world that I grew up, because even when I was 13, I wasn't bullying anyone. I wasn't being bullied either. I was even playing with dolls or playing basketball. And I know the time changes, but my hometown, probably it was still lost in time, and I thought that it was still like a good place for me to show you the other side of the
Mm-hmm.
world, and that's what I wanted to take you over there.
And you mentioned something, about the teachers. Unfortunately, growing up here and going into junior high, I can't say I had one teacher that was great. I had a teacher
Mhm.
that was nice. I remember Miss Kohler, but other than that, I never had a teacher that came up and said, "Are you okay?" Even though I clearly wasn't fitting in, even though I was clearly lying, which we're going to get to that, the lies. I was clearly having issues and no one ever came up to me. So I'm sure there are beautiful teachers out there. And we actually spoke to a counselor on another episode, Ileana Alvarez, who really wants to change that, right?
Yeah.
So, but in all honesty, yeah, we didn't have that happen for me as a child in the United States. So we get to Mexico. I'm going to finish junior high over there, then go into high school. Now there's a culture shock, right? Because I'm coming from another world to a whole new world that is very different. I remember I couldn't even walk a very long time because I was so tired, because we don't walk much here and we walk so much over there. It's a very beautiful valley, and it's full of greenery, and it's very humid, and it rains every day, and the culture is very artistic, and there's a lot of coffee shops, and there's a lot of artisans, and there's a lot of beautiful things. So the first few months are wonderful, right? We get to see your friends who we're very close with, and just a whole different perspective. I remember being overjoyed. I had so much freedom. I could walk everywhere. Everyone smiled at you. Everyone said hi to you. Everyone wanted to get to know me. It was completely different. And I started in junior high, where my mom went to junior high. And that experience was good, although education was miles ahead. It was a lot harder. School was a lot harder, but teachers were still engaged. So let's talk a little bit about that experience. As a parent, what did you see? How did you see me transition into being back in Mexico?
Well, I started to notice that you were a little bit more open to be happy. So you starting to lose that anger that you have inside. And the best thing that I felt is that finally, for the first time, probably we were connecting. You were knowing me, and I knew you my whole life, but you were knowing me. You were basically knowing to or learning how to be with me 24 hours, which it was insane, because before you only saw me probably three,
Mhm.
and I remember that actually it was a mistake taking you to the school that I went, because like it was a shock. I thought it was going to be a good thing, but I noticed that you kind of like didn't like fit in that environment, because everyone was saying like, oh, she's coming from United States, and I noticed like as a different type of racism. Now it's like I am poor and you are coming from United States, you are probably rich, and at that point we didn't even have money. I was trying
No,
to find a job.
no, but it was different. I remember people would come up to me and be like, "Why are And not that in Mexico we have all kinds of colors, we have all kinds of people. We're very diverse, but it was a more on the poverty side of school. So a lot of them would be like, oh, you're white. You will know, you won't understand. You're white skinned, you're white skinned, you're white skinned, you're fresa, which people call over there, like being pretending like you're all that. And I was the opposite of that, but I didn't know how to have, I didn't know what to do. And the teachers, unfortunately, were not as great as when my mom grew up. So I remember saying the story. I remember our PE teacher, our ugly, fat PE teacher, would tell the guys, go play soccer. Girls can stay here. Whoever doesn't want to go to do PE, you can sit on my lap. And we were 13, 14. Now, imagine in the United States or anywhere, that's unacceptable. That's insane. That's crazy. Anywho, we get out of that school and we go into a private school, the Institute of La Veracruz. And that's where my mom starts teaching. She's now an English teacher, a great teacher. And she brings me over to that school. Difference, it's a private school. So there's a different socioeconomic level. Unfortunately for Laura, she didn't fit in this one. And then this one was way too Richie, all that for her too. So she couldn't keep her mouth shut. We'll get to that later. But okay, so your kid is happy. At this point, you could still probably know. Do you notice tics? Is there any tics? Did they go down? Because I feel like they went down. I don't even remember twitching.
Yeah,
as
no,
much.
no. For some, probably because it was more like a calm environment, you
Mhm.
were twitching less, and you were happier, and you were
Mhm.
interacting more with people. That was my Lord. That was my baby. That's why the one that I know, and yeah, from now that you mention it, it was like way less ticks.
Yes.
The
Yep.
anger disappear, and you were more intrigued in like learning and everything. You just want to
Yes.
learn everything. You just want to help everyone. I wouldn't say that you have a big mouth, because I do have a big mouth too. It's just like I think the way that we get raised is that we just say what we think, and we have to fight for our opinion. I mean, if I'm saying that this is a glass of water, it's because I'm going to give you all the details and convince you that it's a glass of water, not just because I have a big mouth. No, I have the reason to
Exactly.
be a big mouth. And at that point, I thought that at the beginning, I was thinking that it was bad decision taking you to Mexico just for fear. But then I thought that it was the best
Yeah.
decision that I could make.
So at this point, even though there was tics when I was little and then there was bullying, as a parent, did it ever cross your mind to be like, maybe she should go to therapy just to get kind of figure those things out? Or was it more like, well, I think she's happy now?
Yeah, I fall in that hole of ignorance, that I thought that you were happy, and that was it. So whatever happened before in the United States with those teachers and with those kids is gone. So I was being naive again, or ignorant, or whatever you want to call it, until the day that I saw that you have a lot of scratches in your arm. And I noticed that, I mean, you used to love to hiking with your friends. And that day I asked you, hey, what happened? And you just told me, like, oh, I was about to fall and I hug a tree, and you gave me the lamest excuse. And in my head, I was just like, oh, okay, be careful. But that light turned on and said, like, hey, okay, something is going on. And thank God for my friend Tere, because you got the trust to, I mean, you trust her at that point, and you told her what was happening. And that's why when she called me, and she told me everything, and that's when we decided to take you to see a psychiatrist.
So what she's referring to is I started self-harming and I started cutting myself, and that was about 16 years old.
16.
So prior to that, I think we had a good amount of happy years, a couple of years that were great. Everything was good. I was so happy to be there. I entered a relationship that was probably not the greatest relationship. He was much older than I am. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And even though he became a great mentor, it also was a cause of a problem around that
Mentor
same
and
time.
tormentor.
Mentor and tormentor. That's great. That's very true. It's very, very true. And at that same time, I start also realizing the injustices in our society in Mexico and mainly in our town. And I start realizing that the indigenous are not getting taken care of and that they're being treated like trash and then that there's more issues. And I have my best friend Pepe, and we start getting involved in political activism that led to me having a lot of issues, which we would now say probably even now PTSD from witnessing a lot of things that I shouldn't have witnessed, but at the same time, no one else was doing anything about it. Mexico is a very, very complex, nuanced political system where, yes, it is a beautiful place to live. Yes, it is just full of beautiful people, but there's a lot of injustices happening and no one cares and everyone just brushes them off. Not that they don't care, but they don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. You have cops that are completely, just corrupted. You have the socioeconomic caste systems. If you're lighter skinned, you have more money, you have more opportunities. And if you're not, then you fall down here. So at that time, I wasn't understanding anything. And I say this just like how people felt very hopeless in 2020 and people went, oh my goodness, I feel hopeless. I don't know what to do. That's what I was feeling at 16. So cutting myself became kind of a way to just kind of release that pain and then keep going and release that pain and then keep going. And then I started having issues at school because I would tell people what was going on and they didn't care. And I couldn't understand why people didn't care. So then I started realizing that there was a difference and that, that wasn't going to change. So my mom found out that I was cutting myself. We started going to therapy. How was that experience for you as a parent?
Scary. Scary, but then you knew that it's gonna get like darker before you find that light, and so that's why I was scared, but at the same time I was feeling right because I finally made the decision to take you to a doctor. So
how involved were you in therapy? Were you also in therapy?
yeah.
And do you think as a parent it's important to be a part of the whole
Yeah, I think that
process?
as a parent, we are afraid to admit that our kid has a problem. And that was the biggest fear or the first fear. Once you realize that your kid had an issue or a problem, then you have to make that a step. And I know it probably is going to be a huge, but you have to do it. So you have to take your kid to a specialist. Because I remember once we talked to the psychiatrist, and he starts saying like, okay, you have to run this test. You're gonna have this therapy. We're gonna start with this medication. I know it's gonna be a long process, and especially seeing you with that heavy medicated pill to wake up, a pill to like go to sleep, and having all those issues like fighting constantly. That's what when I decided that therapy will be for me the best, because I wanted to learn how to treat you. Because at that point I was feeling that it was you against everyone, and me, instead of being a support from you, I was fighting with you. But I was just afraid, and ironically, I want you to be good, but I was forcing you, and that couldn't be forced.
And this is important for any parent out there. My diagnosis is Tourettes Syndrome, Generalized Anxiety Disorder, Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder, and borderline personality disorder. At that time, the borderline being pretty much at its worst. It's really hard as a parent, as a friend, as a loved one to be able to help or connect, because I was constantly trying to push people away. The more they wanted to help, the more pushed away they would get. And I got to a point where you're screaming at people, you're yelling at people, you're saying things that you don't mean. That is not easy to take as a loved one. So obviously my mom wasn't just going to leave me, which I appreciate. But also those friends that stuck by, that were like, no, we're going to get through this. It's very, it's just so empathetic and so wonderful. But at the same time, as I felt guilty too, because I couldn't fix it. I couldn't stop it. I didn't know what to do. And it makes you say, I'm just a burden, I'm just a burden for my friends and my family. So it's just better if I'm not here, and
But
that's when.
that's why it's so important to get into a therapy, because
Mhm.
if during therapy I learned that it wasn't my fault, because that was my main. I kind
Mhm.
of like turned instead of like being worried about you, I was saying like, oh no, I was kind of victimizing myself. I have to confess, saying like, it's my fault. I wasn't present, blah, blah, blah. And when the doctor told me like, okay, if you feel that it's your fault, do you want to apologize? Do you want to ask for forgiveness? And I say, yes. Maybe in a different occasion, parents are going to say like, oh, why should I ask for forgiveness to my kid or something? No, that's the first thing that we have to learn. We have to learn that we are human beings who made mistakes. We are not superheroes, even when we want to be show or seen as a superhero. No, I prefer to be seen as a human being who made mistakes. Second of all, having the courage to learn how to treat you. Probably when you were 16, it was hard. It was hard, but I was committed to do it. So, and the third part, the most important, is that when they show you that it is not your fault, and whatever at that point you were like saying or doing, it wasn't even your fault neither. So we have to work together in order to have that communion, in order to have that peace that only the doctors gave us at that moment. It wasn't your fault, it wasn't mine, but we have to work together in order to get through that.
I could not agree more. And I think that it takes a lot for a parent, especially like you, that didn't grow up seeing mental health as a problem, or didn't grow up knowing about mental health, to get to a point which honestly wasn't very late, 16. You attacked it to be like, okay, we have to do something about it. I have to be present, and I have to rewire my mind, right? I have to learn things that I didn't know, and I have to accept that my kid has a problem. And I think that's what was hard for me, that people kept feeling like, oh, she's okay. But I was over here being like, no, I have problems because I can't control this. I don't know what's happening. And that's hard for a parent to come to terms. So I want to ask, at what point do you think was the scariest time for you as a parent? What was the scariest moment in your life as a parent with a child with mental disorders?
Yeah, probably the from 16 to 18, that I did it. Every time when I go to work, I wasn't sure if I find you when I go back home. I was scared that you will do something like to hurt more yourself. Every time when I see that you cut yourself, I was just like bleeding from inside too. But I think from 16 to 18, because I was afraid that I'm going to lose you at that point. Yeah.
And what did you do at that point to help yourself, if anything, as a parent? Do you think that you should also have a support system? And did you have a
Yeah.
support system?
I got the therapist, which it was good. It was awesome. I learned how to depend from a therapy, probably, and my friends. I had
Mhm.
friends who I have Pepe, who every single day, I think like it was like a probably a cheap therapy, because I was talking to them, and I was expressing my fears, and I was expressing how I felt, but at the same time I have that courage. I don't know if it was fate, but I had like extra dose of exchange. It was I don't know how to describe it. It was probably the same fear to lose you who gave me a strange, or the strange that I needed to fight for you, to fight to take you out of that place where you were
Mhm.
at that moment.
And especially as a parent, because you saw the child that you gave birth, you saw the child that was happy, and then you're seeing this whole different part. And it's so chaotically beautiful, because that's how life is, right? It has moments of transition. It has moments of seeing the most beautiful face on something, and then the darkest face on something. But as a
Yeah,
parent, when you create that person, when you give birth to that person, and you want nothing to happen to that person, it is so difficult. And this transitions just parenthood. This could be a wife with a husband. This could be your mother. This could be your child. Having someone with mental health issues is not an easy process. And it's something that needs to be addressed, that
yeah.
cannot be ignored. So I want to get to a very important question, because we can be here for hours. Uh, what would be your advice for a parent going through it, whether they're going through it with a kid right now that is, 6, 7, 8, 9, or a teenager or an adult?
I think that the first thing is to gain their trust, and communicate. Once they trust you, I think that they will be able to open. And we just need to ask the question, not only the normal question like, hey, how are you, how was your day at school? No, sit down with your kid, see what they're watching on TV, see what they're like drawing, see what they're like, if they have in their cell phone. I'm sorry, probably a bad advice, but I told you all the time,
Yeah.
was if you're living with me, there is no privacy. See, I have to be aware of your whatever people is around you. So you
Yeah.
need to know their friends, you know who they are, and you need to learn how to get close to him to a point that your son or your daughter, they're gonna tell you what's going on. Ask that question like, hey, are you happy? And you will be surprised what the kid is gonna tell you. you know those questions like, how are you, those are like whatever. No, you need to sit down with them and you need to ask them, hey, do you like your teacher? How your like classmates are? Like, how do you feel? Are you happy? Like, you have to get so close to him that you need to like be able to smell what's going on. you
Yeah.
know get the trust and ask for help. don't
Mhm.
don't deal with that by yourself. You need to take them to the doctor, even if it's something that I think it's better for the doctor to tell you that there is nothing wrong than to tell you like what they told me, you should bring her like 10 years ago. you know so that's why it's important. You have to act, and you have to act as soon as you can, as soon as you see the problem, and look for help.
And as a parent, I want to ask, how do you feel when your child is looked upon differently? I remember it was very difficult in Orizaba to go to the psychiatrist because it's a small town. So it's
Yeah.
like the local psychiatry. So of course, if your kid's in there, kid's fucking insane. Everyone's parents are talking about it. Everyone parents, oh my God, Laura's crazy. Um, as a person, uh, it does get you upset. And I've always said it. I think that it's more like having superpowers, and that's something that you've always made me feel. You always made me feel, yes, you might have a problem that we need to fix, but those problems also make you who you are, and they make you special. And I always felt special about it. How do you feel about your child having mental issues, and how do you feel when maybe they are marginalized in society and they're seen as,
Yeah.
different or less than?
It is. I feel that I can do more now than I that in the past, because in the past, like again, you just hide behind that anger, like, oh my God, how like how can people can be so stupid. Now I think that with all the information that we have around us, we have to teach. We have to give that knowledge to the parents, to the people. So we need to talk more about like mental issues. We need to show our kids that the same reason that we have to see a doctor for a flu, we have to see a doctor for your tummy problems or your dentist, is the same thing that we need a doctor for our soul, for our heart, for our interior. So we need one for the exterior and one for the interior. That doesn't mean that you're crazy, that you're like wrong, that is something wrong with you. No, no, no. Everyone has, like I was telling you, superpowers that needs to be showing. A lot of people says that, oh, this kid with autism like has issues. No, why don't you see what he can do instead of what he cannot do? Those kids are smarter than everyone else. Those kids are using the other side of the brain that we don't use, and we are saying that they have a problem, when the problem is that we only use one side. They are using both, meaning that they're more intelligent than us. So we need to learn from you guys. And
Yeah.
that I just want to say is that I know I work with kids probably between 18, 19, 20 years old, that they complain about like working. Oh, I've been working like 4 hours and I have to go to college and take one class. You don't know the stress I have. And they're very dramatic, because they call out very often or whatever. But I always tell them I live with a daughter who twitches, and probably she hit herself 100 times a day, and she still thinking and going and do her master's, and she was doing this and this and this and this and that. So I truly, truly don't understand what stress means. And I just walk away from them because, like, no, we need to educate people, really.
Yes. Yes. And I think it is really important to say that I had a great I guess balance, because a lot of my issues have made me strong and have made me, focused enough to get so many things done. But the confidence also comes from your parents. And as a child, all I can say is, if you're a parent and you are constantly looking in the mirror with your imperfections, if you're constantly talking about your weight, if you're constantly talking about things that are going to make you insecure, your child's going to be insecure. If you have those issues, I'm not saying don't show them, deal with them, go to therapy, deal with them, but your child is really going to take on what the child sees. I saw my mom reading, so I'm a big reader. I saw my mom be strong, so I'm very strong. I saw my mom go into action, change. I saw my mom go from never, we didn't grow up working out or having, fitness or going to the gym. And I saw her now through the warrior room, work out every single day, 5 times a week, do a running challenge, do things that she never thought she could do, because she's constantly okay with changing and evolving and progressing. And when you see that as a kid, it gives you an opportunity to say, oh, I can do that too. I can change and I can progress, and it doesn't have to be stagnant. So again, we could be here for hours. I think she has a lot more to say, and I'm sure that we will have her on in another episode. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being on as a parent, because it's not easy to talk about these things. And I know we didn't mention a lot of things, which eventually we'll go into more detail. But you mentioned a lot of things that are not easy, that you're a parent, you see a lot of things. So this is helpful, because we don't know how many parents are going to watch this or listen to this and maybe feel like, hey, I have a chance. I have an opportunity. And if you guys are listening, please feel free to follow my mom on Instagram. She's under Lupita_Kua. And she is just as open as I am to questions, to anyone reaching out. I'll let you take that on and let people know. This is your time to just tell people anything you want to say.
I just want them to be more a parent than a provider. Here in United States, we are forced to work probably 2 jobs, and I understand. But even having 2 jobs, you need to be more involved in your kids' education. You need to know, like I was saying, friends, teachers. You need to be more in constant communications. So there are too many risks, and we shouldn't have the excuse to say, "I have 2 jobs." That doesn't mean anything. You have to be a parent, not a provider. And you have to be able to know that here, with all this technology that we have, instead of saying like, oh, I'm too old, hey, I'm 55 and I learned how to use the computer. So if you can go and check your Facebook, then you can use a computer, you can Google and find some information in any language. It be not speaking English, that is not an excuse not to find any help. Here, you can say that United States is overwhelming, or United States is a huge help. It's up to you. So it's up to you to observe the world. You can be pessimist or optimist. And I will say that whatever, if you're optimist, a lot of good things are coming to you. But you have to be able to help your kid. Don't become a provider. Just be a parent. Don't be afraid to be a parent.
Absolutely. And to any people in different environments and different cultures and minorities and Latinos, please don't think of mental health as something that you don't want to take care of. Don't think of psychology or psychiatry or something evil. It is there to help you. It is there to help you understand, to help your child feel better. And we can still incorporate everything else. We want to incorporate family, friends, love, but we need to be advocates for psychology and psychiatry. We have to be advocates for therapy. And we had to be advocates with what my mom just mentioned, being a parent, not just a provider, and being there, a part of your entire child's wellness, everything, emotional, financial, spiritual, every single aspect of it. So thank you again so much for joining us today. We will have you on, surely. Thank you for sharing your story as a single parent, as a parent with someone with mental health issues. Thank you so much.
No, thanks to you. I love you.
I love you. Okay. Let me wrap up here. Thank you, Mom, for being on. And thank you, everybody else, for listening. I wouldn't be the person that I am without my parents, without my grandmother, without my mother. I would not be here without someone telling me that I could get over the things that I was going through and that there is no such thing as hopelessness. My mother always told me, I know you want to be active, because if it was for me, I would have, been in a paramilitary or something, fighting for the rights of the people that I want to fight for. And she always told me, you know what, sometimes a pen could be more powerful. Write about it, do things about it. And she was right. Now, as a nutritionist, going to get my master's in public health, having this mental health podcast, having some kind of influence on Instagram or on social media or whatnot, telling you guys that we have to fight any way that we can. In my mind, I'm 7 feet tall. I most likely look like Drew McIntyre and I can go and fight for everybody. But in reality, I'm 4'11". I'm a woman, and it's not an excuse. I just have to fight a different way. And that is exactly what I'm doing. And I wouldn't be a fighter if it wasn't for the warrior parents and culture that I have. So thank you for my mom. Thank you for everyone who listened this whole season. I hope it was beneficial. Please let me know of anything else that could be more beneficial, anything that you guys want to talk about. Season 3 is going to be very, very enlightening. It's going to be very different, but I'm very excited about it. And also look out for a mini series coming up of 6 episodes containing all this information about cannabis and cannabis education. Thank you again for listening to me. I am your host, Lorraine. I am a nutritionist, a health coach, a trainer, a yoga instructor, a behavior change specialist, and I also have a diagnosis of obsessive-compulsive disorder, Tourettes Syndrome, borderline personality disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and now ADHD and severe Tourette's. But that doesn't stop us from doing anything that we want to do. Thank you guys for listening. This is the Wellness of Madness podcast. See you next time.